Okay, here we are. Another episode 2 of Music2121 podcast. So it's actually been a interesting couple of weeks. I think it was about a week or two since I got on and started talking about what this podcast is going to be about and some of my ideas. And as I said before previously, I've been trying to get my friend Norm, good friend Norm, on the podcast. And I think we tried last week and there were some issues, or he was trying to get on with his phone. And so then we tried this, actually today, I believe it was, and messed around with it for over an hour. And still I couldn't get his audio. I could see him and but actually it's just really audio, but his audio wasn't coming through. He was trying to join with his phone, and just audio is all I need. But I tell him we'll have to do it again. So not too much really in this episode. I need to get him on. He's, like I said previously, he's a music buff, knows a lot about music. I've turned him on to a few different bands. A lot of younger listeners out there are not going to be familiar with a lot of these bands that I might be mentioning. Possibly they can. I actually used to work in a guitar store, and there are some young kids coming in, about 20 or so, and I mentioned certain bands, and they were familiar. One in particular was Budgie. Someone was riffing on Bread Fan. And I discovered Budgie years ago, and they were actually, I wasn't aware of it, that Metallica covered one of their songs, Bread Fan. They did Bread Fan. But the original, I heard the original. They're both good. I'm going to stick with the original Budgie. Great group, 3-man band, singer who also played bass, guitar player, and drummer. And if you haven't heard of them, maybe check them out. In for the Kill, I think, is one of their albums. Actually, a song, too. Great album also is When the Groupies Killed the Blues. I have, I think, all those, a couple of their albums on vinyl. So just really, really a great band, And, at the time when they were on the scene, I think it was about 70's or something like that, there was no YouTube around or anything like that. There, MTV, I don't believe. So, actually seeing some of these videos now and seeing how they looked and everything, how the band performed and what kind of guitars they played and everything, pretty exciting. So a lot of times I'll go on YouTube and check out some footage. Another great band that I've heavily into when I was younger. I'm still into them. Hawkwind. So if you haven't heard of them, maybe check them out. They were actually Lemmy, actually. The bass player Lemmy with Motorhead was a part of the group in the early days, I believe. And they used to play in London. They're from the UK, I believe. Big halls, like they're kind of like a psychedelic. You'd have to check them out. Another really, really interesting band, Hawkwind. So I'm trying to think what was a couple of my favorite songs. I don't have any of their albums right on hand. Maybe the next time next podcast, I'll get into them a little bit more. But basically, I'm just going to give you a heads up on some of those groups. We're going to be talking more about 70s and a lot of groups coming out of the Europe at the time. So that those two were top of my list. Plus, you know, I always liked any type of band that was not too commercial. So I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, or probably disagreement, but you know, Van Halen versus, you know, maybe someone like Yngwie Malmsteen, or you know, I would always go for the guitar player of the band was not too commercial. I've always liked that. I always liked Richie Blackmore. You know, since I play guitar too, I kind of like listen more to like what we call the guitarists. So, you know, the guitarists really looked up to them. But anyways, it's a short little podcast this evening. So hopefully I'll be hooking up with my good buddy Norm, and there'll be a little more interplay in the future. And with that, I just want to say thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Okay, just a little side note. Previously, when I mentioned Budgie, I was talking about one of their albums, In For The Kill. I mentioned another album, but that is not an album that Budgie did. I'm sorry. Actually, that album, When the Groupies Killed the Blues, was by a band called Lucifer's Friend, and they were another great band. They came out about that same era as Budgie, and I have some of their things on vinyl too. So just so you know, just want to make that correction. All right, thanks for listening once again, and we'll see you next time.